Hi everybody, this is Tor Storley and I am back with another video. So in this video I just want to finalize the extension a little bit more. It's not available publicly yet, but it's one step closer, and I want to share with you how I made that happen. The big takeaway here is that I have added a new document here, which means how to publish DuckDB extensions and basically create different versions of it. So in other words, how does it become compatible with Mac and Windows and Linux, for example. Now, just a little side note here that I tried Linux and the code that is available for Linux doesn't work for me. So I only have Mac and Windows versions of this release. So that's what I want to cover in this video. So as you can see, I added a document here, publishing DuckDB extensions, Porto document, and then I previewed and created an HTML out of it. So if you minimize and I go in and find this document, this is what it will look like. You can click into different sections of this here. And I just want to go through this pretty quick and show you how I was able to do this with the help of Claude. So what you can see here is that this document describes every step needed to take a DuckDB extension written in Rust, in this case, originally built and tested on Windows, which is the one I supplied, and then you saw in part 2, which may or may not have worked for you, and publish it so that Windows and Mac users can use this. And so what you basically will be doing is download it from my release page and just set a reference and load it from wherever location you put it on your computer. And I'll show you that. The project is sitting here, as you may or may not know. So this is my repository for this project. And I went through this in part 1 and 2. And the only new thing is this publishing document here. You probably have to download this document or put it in your VS Code and open with a live server, something like that. So that's the project, okay? In order to run this, you're going to need some libraries here. You're going to need a tool chain library from Rust. Obviously, you need Git. And since my version of DuckDB is the latest version, 1.5.2, that's what you can get from here. This is the CLI, okay, if you need it. I recommend to use that if you're going to build this project yourself, and you need a GitHub account. So you can verify your Rust installation by running these two commands. So let's see if I can actually run these two commands. Let's put it down in a terminal, and I'm using bash right now. So as you can see, I'm using Rust compiler 1.95. Cargo is 1.95 as well. Okay, so that's good to know. And here is the structure of our project, which you already seen. And I'll let you take a look at that. There's a couple of new things like this release document. There's also, these are the code files. This is new. This make file is new. So we'll look at that a little bit more. Okay, so here is how I built locally, here's how I built the Windows version of this by running these commands in my terminal in bash. And then you can also, once you do that and you want to test it, you simply, in a terminal, like a command window, what have you, you can do it right in your project too. You can simply type DuckDB unsigned. And the reason you have to use unsigned is because it's not been approved by the community extension yet. And therefore, it's not safe enough for them to, so that's why you got to use this unsigned keyword. So when you do that, you can see now I'm inside version 1.52 in DuckDB. So that's how you can do it. And you can say .exit and you'll get out of DuckDB like that. All right, very good. You can also load it wherever you put your extension, whatever you download. You can put it in some folder structure here and then refer to the name of whatever the extension is. Once you do this piece, then you do load, and then from wherever location on your computer you put the extension. And then if it works out okay, then you should be able to run some queries like this to test out the functionality. Here is some more about setting up the GitHub repository. Obviously you want to make it public in GitHub. And this was a lot of back and forth with Claude. It took me a day and a half to to get this to work. There was a lot of plumbing involved. In order to test and create these versions of my extension for Mac and Linux, etc., you have to trigger a workflow in Git. And that is sitting in the actions section of GitHub. So what I mean by that is, if you see here, there's an action section like this. And every time I updated this and tried it again and again and again and again, it triggered, as you can see, a new workflow. As you can see, I have quite a few of them here. Some of them succeeded, some didn't. So the way that works is you trigger a workflow, and it should be in this document we're describing it. But like you can see, this one didn't succeed, whatever I did here, I can't remember. But you can see this one succeeded. So when you click into one of these jobs, you can see the layout of the job itself. Okay, here is one. So you can see here what I went through. So you can see here, I tested out the Mac and the Windows version. So behind the scenes, it builds this based on these jobs. You trigger the jobs by doing these tags, etc. in this document here. It's all a bunch of steps it goes through to test it, and then it either succeeds or it fails. In this case, it succeeded. Here is the document again, and you can see here, you go to Settings, Action, General, and then there's also permission who can run these workflows. Now, I restricted this because I don't want anybody to keep rerunning my jobs. So therefore, I said that, you have to have permission in order to do this, or only me can run these jobs on my GitHub repository. So you can set those permissions yourself. So this is the actions, okay? You can create a new workflow, or you can trigger it from VS Code whenever you submit. That's how that came about. And this was all news to me. So in any event, via Claude, I got the information I needed and which files I needed to present. So there's really my functions GitHub repository, but you also have to fork the DuckDB repository and add a description.yaml file to it that will be running in order to create this. So it gets a little involved, but I wrote this document and I don't think I can read with you through the whole thing. It will take too much time. But there is a DuckDB CI toolchain, as you can see here. These are the instructions you have to kind of run through in order to add these modules, etc. So I laid it out for you here, and you should be able to follow this and probably get it, most of it done. You can see here there's like this make file that has no extension, and that was tricky in Windows because Windows expect an extension, whether it's a .txt or whatever it is. So to create one, I had to do it through VS Code because otherwise I get some weird results. So here is the makefile code. And notice we're targeting the DuckDB version 1.5. Now, one thing I did, you see the skip test there? By doing that, the Linux didn't fail. When I did a Linux, what it failed on was putting up a Docker container, which I don't have. And the code that I used didn't support that for whatever reason. I think in this document, you'll see the reason why. But so anyways, this is the makefile. And I'll let you read through all the details of this. You can see here, skip test. What are you skipping? Well, you're skipping the Python-based test runner, okay? So like a version mismatch, if there's a version mismatch. And so there's a lot of steps in here that is placed in some of these files that is specifically for merging it into DuckDB environment. This is how you can run this stuff in your terminal in a bash window. Use this cat keyword, like a forward pointer, like an arrow, and then makefile. And here is the content of this makefile. So you can run this and it will create it for you. Here is the CI workflow, extension CI YAML file. And you can see here that this workflow runs automatically on every push to master. So when you do the pushing, you're merging it into your GitHub, it will fire off the workflow, your actions workflow, the one I just showed you. This one will build, in my case, the extension for Windows and Mac. Linux was not so good, okay, like I said, because of the Docker container. Once they fix the code for that, Maybe I can create a Linux version too, but I don't know yet. So far, I can only do these 2 versions. Here you can see you also need to create a subdirectory called .github workflows extension CI. Now, what does that mean? Well, let me show you quickly here. You can go to .github workflows like this, an extension. You see this? There's a release and there's an extension YAML file. So the YAML file looks like this for the extension. So there's a bunch of jobs listed. So this relates to building this stuff, okay? So you should be able to just grab this and modify it slightly depending on use case. There's also this release file, which looks like this. And again, I use Claude back and forth to try to figure this out. But I'm trying to target the version 1.5.2. As you can see here, it's going to try to build this, but as you can see here, I'm excluding the WASM because I don't have that working, and the Linux versions, as you can see here. So those are the exclusions, as you can see here. So I'll let you take a look at that. But you have to create a directory called .github/workflows and then put these files in that directory. So that's what this is doing, okay? And you can see the code for it right here. So that's the release. We just looked at that. And if you scroll down further now, you can see you can verify the builds here by looking at, in my case, this is the Actions tab as we went through already. So if I paste that in and look at it, you can see here's all the jobs we just did. And therefore, I created this release GitHub repository. So you can create it so you can download directly without needing access to the action page. So you don't have to go into that action area. You can just go to this release place, okay? And here is the tags that I used for it. Here is the location. You can actually, I'm sorry, this is a generic one. So whenever you create your own, you can just put your GitHub name in here. This is where I put mine. So let's take a look at that quick. So I go up here, paste it, and this is my release page. And I will be putting this into the video and the previous 2 videos. So you can simply navigate to this. And then you can see here is the different versions of my extension, as you can see here. And here they are. So you can download this guy, put it in some kind of folder, and then from that folder, you simply do, when you're ready to use it, go with your DuckDB unsigned and then say load and wherever the folder name is, and this is the name of the extension. But here's 3 different versions, Windows version and Mac versions for 2 different versions of Mac. So that's these guys. So this is my release page. So you can download it from here. And then there's some additional stuff if you want to continue and create subsequent releases. Here is how you do it. You open a command window, a terminal. It's loading it like this. And then you can just test it like this, okay? If you want to run it in Python, you can do this. Okay, you import the DuckDB. You got to make sure you pip install that. And then you can set up object that's going to have a connection. And then you're going to execute the load. And then you're going to execute it like a select. So that's how you can run that in Python. If you want to use R, you can do it this way, okay? So you have information for both those environments. And you have information for the DuckDB CLI. And of course, you can also run that in the UI, the DuckDB UI. Next for me is to determine whether I want to risk to go totally public with this, because once I do, I'm on a hook for maintaining it, and any problems they find about it, I have to answer to. So I haven't made that decision yet. Now, it would be great if you try and download this release and test it and run some stuff on your own. And if there's any issues, let me know, because that I can only test so much. And it would be great if I have some additional insight to this, if it's any good or not. Okay, so this is just some more stuff about how to finalize this stuff. And I'm not going to go through that here. So anyways, here it is. Here is my cargo toml file, which has the Rust libraries needed, like here. And then there's just a summary of all this stuff. And I'll let you take a look at it. I just wanted to let you know that now you can go to this release page and actually download If you're on Windows or if you're on Mac, you should be able to download this, put it in a folder somewhere, and open DuckDB unsigned, and then load whatever extension name it comes back with, and you should be able to try it out. All right, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and if you like it, please give me a like and consider subscribing to my channel. It'll be fantastic. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.